What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the European Union. Because this is really something that is very, very overdue for me to learn about. And honestly, I think a lot of Americans don't really understand what the EU is. Like many things, if they aren't explicitly American, a lot of us don't even bother understanding it, which is terrible. So today I want to kind of fix that. And from what I can gather, the EU is basically a large group of European countries working together, right? But I know there's got to be a lot more to it than that. So today, I want to check out this video by CGP Grey, The European Union Explained. So let's take a look.
Where is the European Union? Obviously here somewhere, but much like the European continent itself, which has an unclear boundary, the European Union also has some fuzzy edges to it.
This is not what I expected. I've never thought of the European Union as being a place with it rather than a group or a collection of countries working together in the Union. But we're talking about borders and boundaries and stuff. Okay.
To start, the official members of the European Union are, in decreasing order of population, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, Poland, Romania, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Greece, Belgium, Portugal, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Sweden, Austria, Bulgaria, Denmark, Slovakia, Finland, Ireland, Croatia, Lithuania, Latvia, Slovenia, Estonia, Cyprus, Luxembourg, and Malta.
Okay, got it. All right. Got it. Totally gonna remember that. If you're in a country that's part of the European Union, do you actually memorize all of the members of the EU? Because this is a lot of countries. I'm not going to lie.
The edges of the EU will probably continue to expand further out as there are other countries in various stages of trying to become a member.
And to be clear, this video that we're checking out today, this video is like over 10 years old, I think. So some of this information could be out of date, like who is a part of the European Union right now. But anyway.
How the EU works is hideously complicated and a story for another time, but for this video you need know only three things.
Okay.
First, countries pay membership dues, and second, vote on the laws they all must follow, and third, citizens of member countries are automatically European Union citizens as well.
What is Yeah, I knew there was a lot more to this than I didn't know. Does that make sense? I knew I didn't know. Which I guess is better than not knowing you don't know, but I knew there was a lot more to this. And I'm glad that for the purposes of this video, they're kind of simplifying it. So the member countries pay dues. You actually have to pay money to the European Union. And does the European Union, is it just sort of like in a company, a board of directors, you know, where every country's leader is the representative and they kind of vote on things like that? Maybe they're gonna explain some of that stuff, or how do they decide what to do with the money? And what is this EU citizen thing? Like a passport of the European Union? What does that mean? I've never heard of that. Being an European Union citizen.
All must follow, and third, citizens of member countries are automatically European Union citizens as well. This last means that if you're a citizen of any of these countries, you are free to live and work and retire in any of the others, which is nice, especially if you think your country is too big or too small or too hot or too cold. The European Union...
What? Stop. Hold on. Wait, stop. Huh? What? I had no idea this was a thing. Really. This is incredible. If you're part of the EU, and you're a EU citizen, you can work and live in any other member country. The amount of places that opens up for all the citizens of all the different EU countries, that's incredible. You can just travel between them all. You can work and live in what? Because here in the United States, it's difficult if you're immigrating to the United States to get the correct visa and be able to legally work and live, and becoming a citizen takes forever. And yeah, so that's my concept of sort of citizenship, the American way, which I'm kind of makes this really, really interesting because I've never heard of this broader European Union citizenship thing.
Especially if you think your country is too big or too small or too hot or too cold, the European Union gives you options. By the way, did you notice how all three of these statements have asterisks attached to this unhelpful footnote? Well, get used to it. Europe loves asterisks that add exceptions to complicated agreements. These three, for example, point us towards the first bit of border fuzziness with Norway, Iceland, and Little Liechtenstein, none of which are in the European Union, but if you're an EU citizen, you can live in these countries, and Norwegians, Icelanders, or Liechtensteiners can live in yours.
Really? That's interesting. So these three countries, at least when this video was made, are not part of the EU, but they still are part of this, I don't know, greater EU citizenship thing. It's really cool. Like, I cannot overemphasize how interesting and cool that is. That you can travel, more importantly, live and work in basically like a huge amount of European countries if you're part of this. That is a huge benefit. I had no idea about that.
Why? In exchange for freedom of movement of people, they have to pay membership fees to the European Union, even though they aren't a part of it, and thus don't get a say in its laws that they still have to follow. This arrangement is the European Economic Area, and it sounds like a terrible deal were it not for that asterisk which grants EEA, but not EU members, a pass on some areas of law, notably farming and fishing. Something a country like, say, Iceland might care quite a lot about running themselves. Between the European Union and the European Economic Area, the continent looks mostly covered, with the notable exception of Switzerland, who remains neutral and fiercely independent, except for her participation in the Schengen area.
Switzerland. That makes sense. Like, most of us Americans don't really have any opinion on Switzerland or really understanding of Swiss culture. But if there's one word that describes them to most Americans, it's like neutral, and maybe Swiss chocolate and Swiss banks and the Swiss Alps, but also neutral. So they're actually not even a part of the EU.
If you're from a country that keeps her borders extremely clean and or well patrolled, the Schengen area is a bit mind-blowing because it's an agreement between countries to take a meh approach to borders. In the Schengen area, international boundaries look like this. No border officers or passport checks of any kind.
What? This is blowing my mind. Like, I did not know there was this level of cooperation between the EU member countries. And just like, if this is true, this is Belgium and the Netherlands. This is the border. There's no border. Like, this is the border. It's just a road. There's no one there. And again, all I have to go off of is my American experiences of like the United States-Mexico border, which has been highly, criticized, and huge political disputes, and that border, and they are building walls in some parts, and thousands of border agents and guns, and there's also like lots of border checkpoints even north between Canada and the United States. It's a very official business. Very, very official business to travel between the countries. The US, Mexico, Canada. You got to have your passport, and you talk to people and document things. And so the idea that it's just like if you're in these parts of Europe, you can just walk between countries, not even having to talk to anybody about it or document things. That level of just like freedom. That's really cool. I had no idea about that.
You can walk from Lisbon to Tallinn without identification or the need to answer the question business or pleasure. For Switzerland, being part of Schengen but not part of the European Union means that non-Swiss can check in any time they like, but they can never stay. This kumbaya approach to borders isn't appreciated by everyone in the EU, most loudly the United Kingdom and Ireland, who argue that islands are different. Thus, to get onto these fair isles, you'll need a passport and a good reason.
Interesting. So this is what he was talking about. There are exceptions to all these rules, and because the UK has islands, and that's interesting. Okay, so that's the exception.
Britannia's reluctance to get fully involved with the EU brings us to the next topic, money. The European Union has its own fancy currency, the euro, used by the majority but not all of the European Union members.
So is that how the euro gained traction and started? Because I know, like, there were a lot of countries have their own currency, but a lot of European countries adopted the euro. I don't know anything more about it than that, but this gives a lot more context if it was a sort of a European Union type of deal where all the members were agreeing to implement this euro currency. Is that how it started?
This economic union is called the Eurozone, and to join, a country must first reach certain financial goals, and lying about reaching those goals is certainly not something anyone would do. Most of the non-Eurozone members, when they meet the goals, will ditch their local currency in favor of the euro, but 3 of them, Denmark, Sweden, and of course the United Kingdom, have asterisks attached to the euro section of the treaty, giving them a permanent opt-out. And weirdly, 4 tiny European countries, Andorra, San Marino, Monaco, and Vatican City, have an asterisk giving them the exact reverse, the right to print and use euros as their money, despite not being in the European Union at all.
This is so interesting. Wow. So there's a couple of countries who just want to maintain their historical currency, like the British pound. Because I remember back when I was a kid, I heard about like the French franc. And that's not a thing anymore, right? It's the euro. And I've always thought, like, when did that happen? It's like, okay, this is why.
So that's the big picture. There's the EU, which makes all the rules, the Eurozone inside of it with a common currency, the European Economic Area outside of it where people can move freely, and the selective Schengen for countries that think borders just aren't worth the hassle.
Okay.
As you can see, there's some strange overlap with these borders, but we're not done talking about complications by a long shot, once again, because empire. So Portugal and Spain have islands from their colonial days that they've never parted with. These are the Madeira and Canary Islands off the coast of Africa and the Azores well into the Atlantic. Because these islands are Spanish and Portuguese, they're part of the European Union as well. Adding a few islands to the EU's borders isn't a big deal until you consider France, the queen of not letting go. She still holds on to a bunch of islands in the Caribbean, Reunion off the coast of Madagascar, and French Guiana in South America.
What? Speaking of France, I had no idea that it had all these random territories around the world.
As far as France is concerned, these are France too, which single-handedly extends the edge-to-edge distance of the European Union across a third of the Earth's circumference.
Right.
Collectively, these bits of France, Spain, and Portugal are called the outermost regions, and they're the result of the simple answer to empire: just keep it. On the other hand, there's the United Kingdom, the master of maintaining complicated relationships with her quasi-former lands, and she's by no means alone in this on such an empire-happy continent. The Netherlands and Denmark and France, again, all have what the European Union calls overseas territories. They're not part of the European Union, instead they're a bottomless well of asterisks due to their complicated relationships with both the European Union and their associated countries.
Oh my god. Yeah, this makes sense. I guess, I don't know if we're going to go too much into the weeds about this. It's more of just an interesting side note, not to minimize the importance of these territories, but for the purposes of this video, learning about the European Union, it's like, okay, so there's a lot of logistics around all these territories around the world that kind of technically expand the domain of the European Union worldwide in a way.
Which makes it hard to say anything meaningful about them as a group, but in general, European Union law doesn't apply to these places, though in general, the people who live there are European Union citizens because in general, they have the citizenship of their associated country, so in general, they can live anywhere in the EU they want, but in general, other European Union citizens can't freely move to these territories, which makes these places a weird, semi-permeable membrane of the European Union proper, and the final part we're going to talk about in detail, even though
That's a nice gig. Your country, no one's allowed to just freely move and live to where you are, but you have all this opportunity if you want to go anywhere, basically anywhere in Europe and live and work. What a nice gig that is.
Though there are still many more one-off asterisks you might stumble upon, such as the Isle of Man, or those Spanish cities in North Africa, or Gibraltar, who pretends to be part of southwest England sometimes, or that region in Greece where it's totally legal to ban women, or Saba and friends, who are part of the Netherlands and so should be part of the EU but aren't, or the Faroe Islands, upon which while citizens of Denmark live, they lose their EU citizenship, and on it goes.
What?
These asterisks almost never end, but this
my
video
God.
must.
There we have it, just like that. In only a couple of minutes, I am much, much more educated on what the EU is. I'm so glad I took some time to learn about this today, because I didn't know anything about the European Union compared to what I know now. Specifically, the benefits of being a member with the euro currency, and obviously the thing that really blew my mind was this European Union sort of passport citizenship where you can live, travel, work in any of the countries that are a part of it. That is so cool, and I had no idea about that. And that is such a awesome perk of being part of this union. That's so interesting. So anyway, I really got a lot out of this. I enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, especially if you're part of the European Union. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on all this stuff. That'd be really cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.